Good morning, Simmers, and welcome to Frankfurt International Airport in Germany with the SSG 7478i. This is the add-on that we will examine more closely in this video by making a long-haul flight. I'm planning to do Frankfurt to Los Angeles as Lufthansa 456. A real-world flight that's also flown with the 7478 by Lufthansa. As you can see, the exterior model of this airplane looks rather nice. Let me just zoom out a little bit so you have a better overview. In terms of the 3D modeling, I think there's not much to complain about this add-on. It looks beautiful, but let's just see how it flies. And before we start doing that, let's first take a quick look at the documentation. Because in the documentation that ships with this airplane there is quite an important paragraph, which is the SSG philosophy, and this is to manage expectations. It clearly states that the design philosophy for this product is that the aircraft must be fun to fly and not require an inordinate amount of time studying systems, flows and profiles in order to successfully accomplish a flight. In other words, it's not as complex or realistic as possible. It's not comparable to, for example, a PMDG 747. If that is what you're looking for in X-Plane, well, basically don't buy this product because you will be disappointed. But if you're looking for a 7478 model that is fun to fly, that has some systems modeled, this is basically the product for you. So I think that's quite important to keep in mind while judging this add-on, because it won't be fair to say this is worthless because it's nothing like PMDG. Well, that wasn't even the goal of the design team to make that. So let's just keep that in the back of our minds. And let's jump into the flight deck and see what that looks like. So when you are in the flight deck, the 3D modeling is actually quite nice. It looks okay-ish. I mean, the chairs, they look a bit, yeah, I don't know how to say it, but it's okay-ish, but not the best, especially the pillows. I mean, they look very fake, but it's a good attempt. But the instruments, that's what it's all about and how you operate it. All the knobs, they are beautifully modeled. I think the cockpit looks quite nice. I already put it on external power. So let's just proceed by firing up the airplane. But before we do that, let's put in some weight and balance data. And you can do that here on this, yeah, what is it, iPad thing. Let's just zoom in a little bit. If you press the on button, you will get this tablet. And you have a few options that you can manipulate. You can adjust the sound volumes. You can enter stuff for the tow, for the pushback, but we're going to use better pushback for that, so I won't be using this one. You can set the payload, which is what we're going to do in a minute. You can set fuel, which is also what we're going to do in a minute. You can put some information about time. The chronometer is in there. And some other options, GPU disconnect, cargo and cabin doors can be opened or closed. You can switch between show or hide rain effects, between kilos and pounds. So if you're in the US, press on, go to options, and here you can switch between kilos and pounds. You can set the field of view, and you can switch between first officer and captain side. But like I said, let's start with the payload. If we take a look at our flight plan, as mentioned, Frankfurt to Los Angeles, quite a long flight. Expected flying time today, 10 hours, 38 minutes, and the flight will bring us on a easterly departure. We have to take off to the east because of the wind. Then we make a 180-degree turn to the west, turn right to the northwest via the Netherlands, over the North Sea, cross Scotland, south of Iceland towards the southern tip of Greenland. We will follow net Alpha, over Canada to the United States Midwest via Denver, inbound to Los Angeles, and that will be the flight for today. To complete that flight, we're gonna need some, of course, we need passengers to pay for it all, and we need fuel to bring us there. So let's start with the passengers. We have 257 passengers on board. Let's see if we can put that in here. Let's see, because they are presets, and I'm not really sure if you can manipulate these numbers and put in some of your own data. Doesn't really look like that. Well, let's just put it on 75%, 351 passengers. So we have a total payload weight of 35,000 kilos. Let's see if that adds up. It's plus 19,000 kilos of cargo, but we need a total zero fuel weight of 271.8. So let's focus on that. It's now 213.2. So we need quite a lot of extra cargo with that. Looks like the plus and minus signs have been reversed. If you press the minus key, then it will add up. So let's just take a look at this. Oh, you can just press and hold. That's always very nice. But what is strange is that the zero fuel weight isn't adjusted with the payload. You would expect this to rise. Anyway, we have total payload weight of 42,561. Well, 42,566. I will settle for that. So that's okay. So let's load the airplane. Zero fuel weight 255.8. Well, if we put in an extra 19,000 kilos of cargo, meaning we should be at 26. I'm not really sure if that's going to work. But let's just take a quick look, see how far we can get. 274.2, and we need 271.8, so 3,000 off. Let's make it 23. Oh, eh? Oh, it's even better. Now I can't get this down. That's strange. Well, 276.8. Let's just leave it like this for the payload. We'll just enter some extra fuel for the extra weight. So go to the fuel page. Let's see. Manual select. FMC selects. Because in total we need 120.336. Well, it says manual select or FMC select. So let's see if we can enter something in the flight management system. Let's go to the... Is there a menu page? There is. Like I mentioned, we need 120.336. So let's put in another 108.2. Let's see if it adds this or that it makes it 108.2. Well, let's just keep this running for a while and then we might top it up to 120, and I think we're gonna add another 5,000 kilos, but we'll just have to look that up. Anyway, let's just continue with the preparations for the departure. With the loadout now being set, let's first start with aligning the IRS. So POS in it, we are in Frankfurt. And we are at gate Alpha 25. But that cannot be entered. It says this is the GPS. There's no other pages, so there's no room to enter your GPS POS. But let's just check this coordinate with the data given on the charts, because we are at Alpha 25, which is down there. And the INS coordinate for Alpha 25 is north 5002.7, east 8340. 5002, 0834. So that is correct. So let's go to route. We have our destination Los Angeles, KLAX. Flight number Lufthansa 456. Was it? Yes, it was. And we expect to take off runway 07 right. What I find very annoying already is that the click spots are very tiny. You have to click very specific in order to get the correct input. In other add-ons like the SIBO mod, it's much wider. You can, if you press it like there, then it's okay-ish. But with the SSG 747, you have to click very precise. So I would really like to see that the click spots would be a little bit larger. Anyway, the route. It's gonna be quite a long flight, of course, so there's a lot of stuff to program. So first waypoint will be Oboka, so that's Oscar, Bravo, Oscar, Kilo, Alpha, Alpha. There we are. From Oboka, we will proceed on the upper Zulu 28. And then we'll fly towards the upper Papa 1. No, you have to enter every waypoint yourself. So from upper Zulu 28 it's to Supur, which is Sierra Uniform Papa Uniform Romeo. And then it's the upper Papa 1. And then it will find that one. All the way down to Godos. And then we'll proceed on Papa 1. Towards Rokan. From Rokan, it's the Mike 982 towards Findo. And from Findo, next page, it was a direct to Iraka. Okay, from Iraka we will enter a route which is called NETA. NETA stands for Net Alpha, and NET is short for North Atlantic Tracks. And here are the nets. These are the nets for today. This is based on the real data that is published by the aviation authorities for the Atlantic crossing. And these are the westbound nets. There are also eastbound nets, but they are not required for this flight, of course. They're for the return leg. But anyway, nets are routes across the Atlantic that are changed every day, and they are dependent on the jet stream that is flowing around the Earth. And it flows from west to east, so we have a headwind. And the nets, they are depicted every day to well, if you fly to the east to make optimum use of the tailwind, and if you fly west to stay clear of the toughest headwinds. So if I, for instance, show the wind in the map, you can clearly see that the nets are placed exactly on the spot where there's the least amount of wind. They are not placed here to the south because of the strong winds that you will encounter down there, but they are placed over the ocean where the wind is, well, the weakest. So we have some pretty strong winds above Scotland, but then when we are south of Iceland, it will actually be quite all right. Should we have flown out of Ireland and then across the ocean, because some days they are much further south, like I said, it's dependent on the jet stream, then we would encounter very strong headwinds. So we're taking route Alpha, and to enter that in your flight management computer, you have to take a look at the individual waypoints, because we are now at Findo, and this is where Net Alpha starts. First waypoint is Iraka. That was entered already. And from Iraka we will fly to 60 degrees north, 20 degrees west, and you enter that as 6020N. So direct to 6020N. Then we'll fly direct to 62 or 62 degrees north, 30 degrees west, so 6230N. We will then proceed to 6240N. And from there on we will continue to 6150N, or 61 degrees north, 50 degrees west. After that we will continue on Net Alpha to a waypoint called Pizzo, or Papa India Delta Sierra Oscar. And from Pizzo, that's where we will pick up the regular flight planning. And we will first fly on November 838 Alpha. And we'll fly to a waypoint called Pepki, or Papa Echo Papa Kilo India, to proceed to November 822 Alpha, or via November 822 Alpha, to a waypoint called Lopvi, or Lima Oscar Papa Victor India. Then it's a direct to Yankee Victor Papa. A direct to Grand. Direct to Yankee Romeo Lima. We're still over Canada by then. Then it's a direct Hotel Mike Lima. And from Hotel Mike Lima we will fly on the Juliet 107. Towards a waypoint called Delta Papa Romeo, and then it's a direct to Romeo Alpha Papa. So Delta Papa Romeo and a direct to Romeo Alpha Papa. Then it's a direct to Echo Kilo Romeo and then onto the Juliet 100s. towards waypoint called 6, and then it's the Quebec 70. Towards Bauer, Bravo Alpha, Whiskey Echo Romeo. And from Bauer it's onto the Quebec 906 to Gunther. And then on the next page, finally, it's the Quebec 73 to Hotel Alpha Kilo Mike November. So Quebec 73 to Hotel Alpha Kilo Mike November. And from there on, we will fly the Star into Los Angeles. So this is the first part for the route, for the real flight plan. So this one is now programmed. Let's put in some departure information first. It's going to be 7 rides with the, I thought it was the OBOC 1 Echo, no 1 Delta. Via Oboka. So execute into the route. OBOC 1 Delta to Oboka, so that's good. And then we have an arrival into Los Angeles. There seems to be some problem with the star assignment for runway 25 right. Looks like we're not going to take runway 25 right, we're just going to take another runway then. So let's just take a quick look. Which one shall we then take? Let's take 24 left. There we go. Finally, execute. So Alpha November Juliet Lima Lima 4, Hakam transition to ILS runway 24. Let's go to the route. Check whether that's in there correctly. Looks alright. Hakam Anjin Lima 4 to that one. Should be okay. Alright, so let's go back to the part of loading the fuel. We now have 108.4, which is not enough. We need another 12 tons, so let's go to 120. Let's make it 125. What the hell? Why isn't this? Ah, there we go. $125 load fuel, so there's a little bit of extra fuel coming on board right now. Alright, so the weight and balance is now finally set. The flight plan is loaded, so let's focus on the performance part of the flight for now. The zero fuel weight, 276.8. We should arrive with 12,000 kilos, so let's make it 8,000 kilo in reserve. Alright, cost index, let's put that to 50. And then we have the zero fuel weight, so let's proceed. 276.8. 277. Anyway, the cruise altitude, let's just proceed with that. I don't know why it doesn't take the zero fuel weight. Initial climb will be to flight level 320. And the step climb size will be 2,000 feet. I said 2,000 feet. There we go. So thrust limits. Well, let's derate takeoff by 10%. But let's put a full climb on there. Flaps on takeoff will be 20. Giving us some very high speeds. But that's alright, we're a heavy airplane. So V2 is 181. Let's dial that one in here. Takeoff will be 07 right. And the initial climb clearance on the departure is 5,000 feet. So that's also in there. Okay, let's take a quick look at the fuel loadout. If you have this little panel over here, you can adjust the information that you get to see on this screen. So let's go to the electrics, for instance. Oh, have to first change the other screen. Nav. And I want it on the lower center, and that's where we want to see some click spots. They are quite annoying here. Electrics. That looks all right. The fuel. We have a full load, 125,000 kilos. Always verify that it's not pounds or kilos, depending on the units that you're working with. Environmental control system or the air conditioning. Oh, crap. Well, everything is off right now, that's correct. And the flight controls. That's a familiar picture. We have the hydraulic system. The doors page. The landing gear. And the other info button isn't working. We can put the checklist on there. I just don't know. Oh, here's the cursor control for that. So oxygen is tested, and the flight instruments, the heading and the altimeter. Well, let's take a quick look at the weather information.
Echo Delta Delta Foxtrot Airport Information Hotel 0720 Zulu Weather Wind 067 at 7 Visibility 10,000 Sky Clear Temperature 25 Dew point 14 QNH 1022 Advise on initial contact you have information Hotel Echo Delta Delta Foxtrot Airport Information Hotel 0720 Zulu Weather Wind 067 at 7 Visibility 10,000 Sky Clear Temperature 25 Dew point 14 QNH 1022 Advise on initial contact you have information Hotel
Okay, information hotel QNH 1022. If you dial it in one of these, then it will be set
Echo
in all the other boxes automatically. To change between inches and hectopascals, move your cursor up here until you get the two arrows, and then you can switch. So that is all right now. So we have set the flight instruments. The initial heading 068 is set, and the altimeter 1022, that is correct. So select that one. Parking brake. That is set. So the pre-flight checklist is now completed. So let's get rid of some of the ground equipment. Let's set the flight directors to on. And let's pre-plan the pushback already. So this is where we want to go.
Ground to cockpit. Plan acknowledged. Call me through the menu when you're ready.
So ground handling. Well, not yet. Let's just start up the APU first before we disconnect the ground power. I think it's pretty cool that they have included the interactive checklist in here. And another pretty cool feature is that in the nav display right now, we are now at a certain zoom level, I think it's 5, but if you zoom in even further, you actually get the airport map. So you can actually see the taxiway layout where you're parking, and I think that's a pretty cool feature. I haven't seen that in some of the payware add-ons. Well, maybe the planes they just don't have it, but I think it's pretty cool that this one is modeled. So kudos to that. The only thing so far that I would really like to see changed is the click spots. They are very tiny and not very well positioned, so I have the tendency to click next to it, and well, it's just quite annoying. And I would like to see manual input throughout the tablet. That would be very nice, much easier to load the desired loads to your airplane. Anyway, the APU is now running, so let's put them to available, which they are. So switch everything to auto here. Ah, this is a shame. In the real plane, of course, you can press each button separately, but well, I think this is part of their philosophy to make it an easy airplane. They have included one click spot where you can manipulate multiple buttons at once, but you can't operate each pump individually. So that tells you something about the depth of simulation of the fuel system. But like I said in the beginning of the video, that's very much in line with the design philosophy to make it an easy, fun plane to fly, but not too difficult. Yeah, well, if you are looking for really hardcore, in-depth system simulations, of course, this is something that won't satisfy you. Anyway, let's go with the nav lights. They can be switched to on. And with the APU running and supplying power to the airplane, let's drive away the ground equipment and call in the pushback tuck.
Ground to cockpit. Toes driving up.
And let's of course close the doors. GPU is disconnected, so let's take a quick look at the outside. Doors are indeed closed, and the equipment is now driving away. So let's verify that again on the doors page, which was down there. They are all armed, so let's return to the checklist. So flight deck door, let's start with that one.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed. Ready to connect. Set parking brake.
The brakes are set, clear to connect. So the flight deck door is closed and locked. Passenger signs, they are on. MCP V2 is 181, heading 068, altitude 5000 feet is set. Takeoff speeds, V1 is 153, V rotate 173 and V2 181. they are calculated. The CDU pre-flight is completed. Trim has to be at 6.8 units. So let's put on the flight control.
Tow connected and bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake.
And it has to be at 6.8. So that is now set. Taxi and takeoff briefing. Well, takeoff briefing, as mentioned, we have to depart runway 07 right with the Oboka 1 Delta departure. Let's just put this one in the overlay mode. I think that's pretty cool. So we'll take off runway 07 right towards the Frankfurt NDB. Maximum speed 220, left turn heading 022. The initial heading 068 by the way, so 022. Then we proceed to the Metro VOR on 110.0, and then it's a left turn heading 2872 Odaga onto Kusum, altitude 5000 feet. Left turn towards Gubaks, also 5000 feet, Rafki 5000, Ditam and Oboka, and then it's onwards. I think we will get ATC clearance to climb further than 5000 on the departure, but let's stick to the initial altitude of 5000 feet for now. Well, that's basically it. Takeoff. Anything below 80 knots, any warning sign, we will abort the takeoff. I will call abort, bring the airplane to a complete stop and assess the situation from there. Between 80 knots and V1 we will only abort takeoff for fire or control issues. Again, I will bring the airplane to a complete stop. I want the second officer to monitor speed and brake temperature. And as soon as we have come to a complete stop, we will then decide to either evacuate or taxi to a safe place. After V1, it will be takeoff. We'll climb to 5000 feet and see what we can do there. Contact ATC in case of an emergency, because we have to dump fuel before we can return to the airplane, to the airport. If there are no questions, that's the departure briefing. So taxi and takeoff briefing is completed. Let's set the beacon light to both. And that is the checklist completed. So with the pushback tuck in position, the ground equipment is cleared. Brakes released, clear to push.
Starting pushback, and you may start the engines.
Roger, starting sequence, first 4, then 3, then 2 and 1. So let's start up number 4. Of course we have to engage the bleed airs first, so starting number 4. Why isn't this working? Click spots, there we are, 4. Let's bring on the engine information on screen. 22, fuel flow open. Starting number 3. Fuel flow open. Starter cutouts, starting 2 and 1, starting 2, and starting 1. Fuel flow number 2, and fuel flow number 1.
Operation complete. Please set parking brake.
Brakes are set, clear to disconnect.
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
Number 2 starter cutout, and number 1 starter cutout. Packs are on.
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the right. I'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
Thanks for your help. See you next time. Bye bye. So the crossfeed valves, they are opened. There are no strange lights on the overhead, which means that we can basically go for a flight control check. Clear signal is received. Flight controls, full left, full right, neutral, down, up, neutral, and the rudder. Full left, full right, neutral. Flaps 20. And the electric controls, they have to be set to norm. Let's return to the checklist. Well, engine NTIs, let's just set it to auto. We won't need it for takeoff anyway, because the temperatures are quite high. But auto will be fine. Recall. Fuel low step. Let's check the fuel loadouts. Yeah, that's right. Step is empty, but that's normal. So let's return to the checklist, and we can basically switch the step tanks off. Auto brakes, RTO. Recall is checked. Flight controls were checked. Ground equipment is clear. Brakes released. Taxi lights on. And let's be on our way. So takeoff warning config. TO config warning, I mean. It's checked. No sound. So in terms of taxiing, Alpha 25, we have to go to 7 right, so we'll go to taxiway Yankee and then towards the proper runway. Let's give way to some other traffic first, because they don't want to take off behind us. We will create quite some wake air turbulence. By the way, I have two SciTech throttle quadrants, so that gives me 4 individual thrust levers. And I think you need them to fully experience flying a 747 or any 4-engine plane. There's traffic coming our way on that one, so let's proceed to this taxiway and then turn right. The AI traffic, by the way, that is X-Live Deluxe by Yar design, but I won't be using the air traffic control feature of that during this flight. Usually it sort of crashes, especially on longer flights. So I decided not to use it for this video. So let's turn right here. Nineteen knots is a little bit too much, so let's reduce some power. I must say, you really have the feeling of handling a big airplane. It's I don't know how to express that, but it's so far I really like the feel of this airplane. Really have the feeling that I'm in a massive, heavy thing, which I am, of course. So I think in terms of something at least with the dynamics on the ground, they seem to be quite nice. At least it doesn't feel like you're taxiing with a fighter jet. Let's cross 7th center here and then turn right. Follow that airplane to towards the holding point for 07 right. So let's reduce, add in a little bit of brakes. Ground speed approximately 10 knots for 90 degrees turn. And when we are crossing the runway, let's switch on the runway turn-off lights. No traffic on the runway.
Approaching 07
Strobe
center.
lights on. And when we are on this taxiway, we will do the before takeoff checklist. So flaps 20, that's set. Before takeoff checklist completed. That's an A340 taking off. Which reminds me, I haven't heard anything about the YAR A340 lately. Last update is well over a year ago. Quite anxious to know if they are still working on that one. Would be nice to have an A340 in X-plane. And the YAR A330 is quite a nice plane. I think that in terms of system depth, the YAR A330 is quite comparable to the SSG 747. It's also fun to fly, not too difficult. Let's take a look at the transponder because we have to switch that one on. TARA. Really like the 0.25 zoom option on the rangefinder in the nav display to actually have that airport layout visible on the nav display. Very, very nice touch. Approaching the hold short position for 07 right, but let's say that we are clear to line up on the runway. Let's just zoom out. There is an airplane inbound, but I think that's for 07 center. Yes, it is. So let's brake. And let's line up on runway 07 right. Let's hold short for a minute. I'm not that sure actually. I think he is coming for us. Oh. Let's see what the first officer can depict. No, that one, I think he is going for 07 center. Doesn't seem to be on course for... No, he will be way off. And 7 center is right there. So let's proceed and line up. So before entering the runway, always verify that the strobe lights are on. Which they are.
Approaching 07 right.
Taxi light can be switched off. And you only turn on your takeoff or your landing lights when you are cleared for takeoff. So we might speed this up a little bit. The auto throttle is armed. LNAV, VNAV active. Flight directors are on.
On runway 07 right.
Check 07 right is verified and correct. We are lined up. Let's say that we are cleared for takeoff. So landing lights on. Runway turn of lights off. Strobes were on. The cabin is ready. Cabin crew, take your seats for takeoff. So let's advance the thrust levers. Brakes released. That's nice and even. Takeoff power is set. Airspeed active. Cross-checked. V1. Rotate. Positive rate, gear up. And here we are, Lufthansa 456. Out of Frankfurt, heading for Los Angeles. Let's lower our rate of climb slightly. We really feel that this plane is slow to respond to the controls, just as you expect from a heavy airplane. Really nicely done. Let's just make sure that we keep that nose at approximately 10 degrees. A little bit lower so the airplane can actually accelerate. We are very heavy. Overflying Frankfurt. With ex-Europe, by the way, for the autogen. Now 220 is set automatically by VNAV because of the standard instrument departure setting, so flaps 10. Oh. We want to maintain a climb, don't want to descend. There we are. Starting our left-hand turn now. Oh. Flaps 5. Dial up the heading. Still a manual control, it actually handles quite nice. Alright, so onto a straight line. Can now accelerate to 250 knots, which we are doing. Flaps 1. Okay, so autopilot engaged. LNAV, VNAV active. Well, after takeoff checklist, the flaps cannot be retracted. Because we are still flying too slow. Let's say that we are clear to climb to 16,000 to 12,000 feet. Forgot to switch on the chronometer again. I don't know what it is, why I keep forgetting that.
Altimeter setting.
Oh, we are of course past our transition altitude, so standard 1013. Shouldn't be distracted by stuff like that, but it's actually quite nice to have that chronometer running. Starting our left-hand turn towards Odaga. Well, I know that in reality they can ask for a high-speed climb in situations like these where the airplane is very heavy. And when it's approved, they are allowed to fly faster than 250 knots below 10,000 feet, which helps, of course, because they can retract the flaps earlier, which saves drag and thus fuel. We're not going to do that. We'll just fly the normal stuff for this route. On the sit, almost passing 10,000 feet. Let's say we are clear to climb flight level 260. So passing 10,000 feet. Landing lights off. And let's go for a speed change. Let's fly a vertical speed of 1200 feet per minute with indicated airspeed of 280 knots during climb. Flaps up. So after takeoff checklist is completed. So we don't need any checklists for next couple of hours. So what we'll do is we'll just switch this over to the fuel mode. I always like to monitor the fuel flow and the fuel use consumption of the engines. And this is actually quite a nice setting for that. You can see the loadout of the various tanks. And what you can also do is put on some extra engine information here, and you will have the fuel flow in here. I think I'll leave this one because this will also give us a good reading of the oil temperatures and vibrations, etc. Which is especially handy during the climb, of course, when the engines are running on a quite significant amount of power. Let's make that rate of climb 1500 feet per minute. Beautiful day here in Frankfurt, southern Germany, well, Western Europe actually. In the Netherlands it's also boiling hot. Expected heat wave this week. So we'll just have to wait and see how things go. Next waypoint, Kubax. Well, as you can see, actually the LNAV feature works quite nicely. The airplane starts its turns a little bit before the waypoints to keep on track. So it's not just here and then turning, and so this is actually very smooth. And right now we are flying here. Still on the departure. And then it's onwards towards the Netherlands, North Sea, Scotland, Greenland, Canada, the US for final destination. Los Angeles, where we expect to arrive somewhere around 9 o'clock this evening. Of course, I won't put all of that in the video. That would be way too boring. So what I'll do is I'll cut the video in a few moments. And I'm back with you guys as soon as anything interesting is happening. Or, of course, when we are ready for the descent preparation into Los Angeles. I cannot do the oceanic clearance stuff because I'm not using any ATC sim. There is a interesting video, or at least I once saw an interesting video on YouTube from the, I think it was the UK aviation authorities about transatlantic crossings. So what I will do, if I can find it, I will include that one in the description of this video. It gives you loads of information on how a transatlantic crossing is done by modern jetliners. I thought they followed Aer Lingus from Dublin to, I thought it was Boston or New York on an A330. Anyway, they gave a lot of information, very much detail, and they could show it, of course, in much more detail than I could ever do in a sim. So if you are interested in the procedures for the transatlantic crossing, I will look up a video and post a link in the description if I can find it. Anyway, we are climbing happily, very nicely, in very calm weather out of Frankfurt, so I will set the seatbelt signs to auto. And without any strange warnings, or oh, the APU is still running. Let's switch off the APU. That saves a lot of fuel. Let's switch this one back to VNAV. So we can accelerate even further. I'll proceed, and I'm back with you guys as soon as anything interesting appears, or of course when we are ready for our descent into Los Angeles. So see you in a bit. So, and welcome to the skies over Canada. We took off at approximately 10:15. It's now almost 1700. So far so good. We are making nice progress along the route. If I take a look at the flight plan, we are now, oh, wrong one. We are now well over Canada, inbound to the US border. And from then onwards it will be, well, roughly 3.5 to 4 hours before we reach LA. I must say, so far I'm quite surprised in a positive way by the accuracy of the performance data. The performance, I use Professional Flight Planner X to do all my flight planning. And in Professional Flight Planner X you use aircraft templates to get the proper weight and balance for the flight that you are planning. And the template that I used in Professional Flight Planner X for this flight is the PMDG 7478. And well, so far it is actually, well, not spot on, but it is quite close so far. In the way that my step climbs, as predicted in the flight plan, are, well, basically they are spot on. What I see as soon as I reach a waypoint for the next step climb, it will be Humboldt, Hotel Mike Lima. We have to climb to flight level 380 there. And if I take a look in the flight management system in the VNAV page 2, the cruise, you can actually see that the optimum flight level right now is still 352. But it will change to 362 or 372 as soon as we are very close to HML. I not really know how they calculate this step 2 point, because that is not as accurate as it should be. But the minute I reach the point in my flight plan where I have to make the step climb, it usually says in here that the optimum altitude is roughly 800 feet below that assigned flight level. So that's actually pretty good. Fuel-wise, the prediction is, well, heavily dependent on the wind. As soon as the wind changes, you will see the calculated amount of fuel upon arrival change as well. So this flips all over the place. It has been 1.4 just after takeoff, and right now is 15.6 or 15,600 kilos of fuel on board upon arrival. We'll just have to wait and see what it really is as soon as we touch down, but according to the flight plan, we should have on arrival 12,367. I think it will be close to that because of the wind. If I put in the wind direction in here, you can see that there's a pressure area close to Denver. And at HML, where we will enter US airspace, we will have like a crosswind, maybe slight tailwind. But the closer to Denver we'll get, the more it will turn to a crosswind from the front, so a headwind. And after we pass Meeker VOR, or Echo Kilo Romeo, we'll make a right turn to the southwest, and then we'll have the wind straight ahead. So that will cost some time and fuel. So my guess is that the 15.6 that we see right now will diminish quite rapidly after that point, and the 12.3 that is depicted or predicted in the flight plan should or could be quite accurate, but I'm quite anxious to see how that works out. So in terms of system depth, this is not the most in-depth add-on that is available for X-Plane. That still is the Flight Factor A320 in my opinion. But as far as performance, and that's not just frames per second, they are actually quite good with this airplane because it's not the most complex add-on. But performance, as in fuel prediction, I think this is actually pretty good. If it's that close to the how do you call it, PMDG template in Professional Flight Planner X, then, well, I'm happily surprised, like I said. Anyway, the fuel on board still distributed over the tanks, 12.2 in the main 1 and 2. There's 9.1 in main 1 and 4 with 3.2 in reserves. So what we can do is now close down the crossfeed valves for engines 1 and 4, because now each engine has approximately 12.2 or 12,200 kilos of fuel per engine. So let's just close down the crossfeed valves in here. And you will see that the green line here is now turned black, and engine 1 is now being fed from main 1, engine 2 from main 2, 3 from main 3, and 4 from main 4, and the reserve for that one. So that's actually pretty nice. In terms of the weather, well, it's been a quiet flight. There's not much wind, no extremes, no extreme winds, no extreme weather systems en route, no precipitation. So it's going on very, very nicely. Welcome back to the flight deck. We are well on our way in US airspace near, well, near, that's relative, but close to Denver. Still approximately 1.5 hours to go until we reach Los Angeles, but I think that's a perfect time to take a good detailed look at the star that we're going to fly and make sure that everything is set correctly in the flight management computer. So let's take a closer look. For the arrival, we programmed the Alpha November Juliet Lima Lima 4 star with an ILS approach for runway 24 right in Los Angeles. And if we take a closer look at the star map and we make that transparent over the route map, then you can see that we will fly in from this point down here to Shatner, to Sally, left turn to Angel, Kane, Boyle, Circus, and then it's onto the ILS. But if we take a closer look at the top right corner of the star chart, it tells us to expect runway 25 left unless otherwise assigned by ATC. It also tells us to expect the local altimeter reaching flight level 230, and some other stuff about some transitions that we are not interested in right now. Transition level is flight level 180, and we have to set in inches. There's a speed restriction. Turbojet aircraft descend via Mach number until intercepting 280 knots, then maintain 280 knots until slowed by the star. So let's take a closer look at the star. We start here at HAKMN, which is of course this point. We overfly this one, and we have to be at least at flight level 190, and we have to maintain flight level 190 until we passed Sully and even until we passed Glessen. Glessen we have to be at 280 knots between or above flight level 240 and below flight level 300. Then we have to proceed to Angel with the terrain elevation being 17,000 feet. And we have to arrive over Angel at or above flight level 190 but below flight level 240, still at 280 knots. Then we proceed to Kane, where we have to be at or above 17,000 feet. Then we proceed to Boyle, where we have to be at or above 14,000 feet. To proceed to Circus, where we have to be at or above 12,000 but below 14,000 feet at 270 knots. And from Circus we are then guided onto the ILS for the runway, and we can expect runway 25 left. Now runway 25 left is down here. So from Circus we have to fly on a heading of 235 till we reach Crane, and then we proceed to Tarok, Daimo, Fueler, Gate, Honda, Lima onto the ILS. And the vertical profile is as followed. We have to be at Crane at 10,000 feet and 250 knots, because 250 knots below 10,000 feet is the speed limit. Proceed to Tarok, we have to be at 9,000 feet down there. Proceed to Dimo, 8,000 feet. Fueler, 7,000 feet. Gate, 5,000 feet. Honda, 3,600 feet. And at Lima, 1,900 feet. And we have to reduce the speed in the meanwhile. Radio, altitude, decision height. It's 200 feet radio, so we have to set that. We can do that already, that's not going to change. 200 feet radio for the minimums. So in here minimums, make sure you select radio and then you can dial it up to decision height. Of 200 feet. Just checking to see if I can actually switch between radio and baro, but it doesn't really look like that. Or I'm doing something wrong. Well, anyway, 200 feet is now set. And if you take another closer look at the star map or chart, you noticed me saying we have altitudes given in flight levels and in thousands of feet. And what's the difference? Well, the difference is that as long as you are assigned flight levels, you are above the transition altitude. As soon as you are assigned an altitude in thousands of feet, you have to be on the local QNH. That's the big difference, because flight level is always on the standard barometric altimeter of 1013 millibars or 299 or 2 inches. But that's the big difference. So somewhere between Angel and Kane we have to transition our our flight instruments from the standard QNH to the local QNH. So that's another important thing to remember. But let's take a closer look at the flight management computer now, because we have to make some alterations. We are still expecting Angel 4, but instead of runway 24 left, we expect ILS runway 25 left. And we're flying in via Circus. With the transition from Angel via HAKMN. So this is the route that we expect to fly. So go back to the route page and proceed. Ackerman, Angel 4 to Shatner. And then it's empty. Let's see what that looks like in here. Okay, so we have HAKMN and then Shatner. That's correct. Then we should have Smash and Sally. Smash Sally to Gleason to Angel. Gleason to Angel. And then we need Kane, Boyle and Circus. Kane, Boyle and Circus. Onto the ILS for runway 25 left. Crane, Tarok Demo. Crane, Tarok Demo. Fuel R Gate and Honda. Fuel R Gate, Honda and then Lima. And then runway 25 left. So the waypoints are correct. Now we have to take a closer look at the vertical profile. It says Lima at 1900 feet. Now we already saw on the ILS chart that that one is correct, because Lima 1900 feet is correct. Honda 3600 feet is also correct, but it says 3600 or above, and I don't want that. I want to be at 3600 feet. And I don't want to be at 250 knots at this distance from the runway. I want to be at 210, and I want to be at 180 over Lima. So we're going to alter that. If you take a quick look at the landing prediction, it's 155-ish. It will be a little bit less because we still have an hour of flying to do. But let's say it's 152 on flaps 30. So go back to the LAX page. So I want to be 152 knots at 00152 at this point. Lima, I want to be at 180 knots. No, that's only 5.5 miles out. I want to be at 160 knots. Make that 170 because we are quite heavy. At 01900. Honda, I want to be at 180 knots. No, 3,600 feet. Yeah, well, let's make that 210, given the weight of the airplane. 3,600. And gate, I want to be 5,000 feet. 220. And fuel R, I also want to be 220 knots at 7,000 feet. Let's execute this already. So this is for the vertical profile, the final stages of the flight. We now have to correct speeds and altitudes. Demo, I want to be at 250 knots there. So that's correct, 250, but I want to be at 8,000 feet, so not 8,000 or above. I want to be at 8,000. As well as Tarok, I want to be 250 knots at 9,000 feet, not at or above. And crane, we have to be at 10,000 feet. So I want to be 250 knots at 10,000 feet over crane. And then circus, what did we say about circus? We have to be 270 knots, 12,000 feet. That's what we want there. And then we have Boyle at or above 14,000. That is correct. At 280 knots. So from Boyle onwards, it's actually quite all right. But at least now we have the correct top of descent calculated in the flight management computer, and vertical or VNAV will now follow the appropriate altitudes to be in the correct space, correct altitude and speed at the correct waypoints. So that's set. There's no need to set the VREF already because that will still change. What we can also do is take a look at the ILS heading and frequency. It's 251 at 109er.9er. Let's take a look at the nav radio page. So ILS 109er.9er. At course 254, 251. That's set. So 632 miles to go to LA. Expected fuel upon arrival is 18,900. So that is a bit more than expected. Well, I gave it 5,000 extra. And we are, well, let's say 6,000 over that when we arrive. So just all right-ish. Okay. So as far as that is concerned, we have now made the turn at Echo Kilo Romeo. So we now indeed have that crosswind from the right front. So that's going to cost us some ground speed. Ground speed is now 450 knots. We still have 625 miles to go, so we expect to be at LAX in approximately 1.5 hours. Approximately 9 o'clock, maybe 9:15. We just have to wait and see what the wind is still doing. Anyway, if we take a look at runway 25 left, because of course once we have landed we have to taxi to the gate, and there are certain approved routes for the 747-800 or the 748, and they are shown on this map. Should we be assigned runway 24 right by ATC, we have to roll all the way down to Alpha Alpha, leave the runway, cross runway 24 left, and then from Alpha Alpha onto Echo, via Romeo to Delta to Tango, and we are allowed to park on these gates. And the other gates are too far in there, and there's not enough space for the for these airplanes to park there. So we have to be at this side of the international terminal to find a parking spot. If we land as expected on runway 25 left, we have to roll out until we are at Hotel 9 and I think Hotel 7, judging by the looks of it. And then we have to taxi towards Tango, and from Tango onwards either via Charlie to Sierra or from Tango to Sierra to find the correct parking spot. Means we have to roll out quite a bit, so we don't need full auto brakes. So let's set auto brakes to 2. And that's basically all that I can do right now for the approach preparation. So we checked the charts, we set the flight management computer, we set the nav radio for the ILS, and that's basically the approach briefing already done. So I'll continue the flight and I'm back with you guys as soon as we are into the descent and the approach into LAX. See you in a bit. So welcome back. I just finished the first step descent from flight level 380 to flight level 300. We are now passing HAKMN, so that is the initial point of the star, 30,000 feet. We are at 280 knots. And let's take a look at the descent checklist. So recall. Let's check. It only says auto brakes 2. The notes, well, we've checked them. Auto brakes are set to. Landing data, let's get that straight. It's going to be a flaps 30 landing, speed 150. ILS 109.90 at 252 is set. And the minimums 200 feet radio are set. And the approach briefing, well, we already completed that in the previous part of the video, so that is completed as well. So just a little bit further to the top of descent, roughly 38 miles away now. LA is 183 miles out. So what I'll do is I'll skip the video again. So welcome back. We are now inbound to Charlie Alpha Alpha November, descending to 17,000 feet. So we have to get our QNH.
Kilo Lima Alpha X-ray airport information Bravo 1753 Zulu weather wind 268 at 9er visibility 8 sky condition few clouds at 900 9000 scattered 2000 scattered ceiling 17800 broken temperature 22 dew point 18 altimeter 3000 advice on initial contact. You have information Bravo.
Information Bravo 3000 for the altimeter. There we are. Let's switch this back to VNAV. No, we don't want it. Hold. We may not accelerate beyond 280 knots. So anyway, QNH 3000 is set. So that's the approach checklist completed. So Beauville, we need to be at 14,000 feet. And let's engage a speed brake for that. I already thanked the cabin crew, told them to prepare for landing. The seatbelt signs are on, so that's also taken care of. The cabin is being prepared for landing. And let's continue our descent to 10,000 feet. Because we have to be at crane at 10,000 feet. And we have to start slowing down to 250 knots. So let's make that a 2,000 feet per minute descent, so we have some time to decelerate as well. See if we can reduce to 270 already. Inbound crane. Set speed 250. Speed brake is armed. Speed 250 knots, altitude just passing 11,000 feet. The next waypoint you have to be at 9,000 feet. And let's continue the descent to 9,000. So we've passed 10,000 feet, so let's switch on the landing lights. And let's proceed to 8,000. Make that 7,000. It's a cloudy day in Los Angeles. We are now on the localizer. And as soon as the glide slope is alive, I will switch to approach mode. So let's continue our descent to 5,000 feet. And then it's going to be Honda at 3,600. So let's start to reduce our speed to 220. Flaps 1. Let's reduce further to 180. And continue to descend 1900 feet. Flaps 5. airport is in sight, but I think this is a weather reload and that we will get more clouds in a minute. And approach mode engaged. Flaps 10. Reduce speed to 170. Let's set the altitude to 2000 feet because according to the missed approach information on the ILS chart, that's also the missed approach altitude. Final check for the landing speed, still 150 knots. $11 miles out. And let's continue our descent at 500 feet per minute to intercept the localizer, or the glide slope we are established on the localizer. Reduce the speed 160, flaps 20. Gear down. Okay, reduce speed 150. Flaps 25. Flaps 30. So flaps. Speed brakes armed. Landing gear is down, locked, and green. Flaps 30 green. Landing checklist is completed. Missed approach heading and altitude are set. Exterior lights on. Cabin is ready. And I think it's about time to take control of this beast. So auto throttle disengaged. Autopilot disengaged. Pilot has control. See if we can land this thing. Oh. Need a bit more power.
Approaching 2-5 left.
Check 2-5 left is verified and correct. Let's increase power for some extra forward speed. We are slow and low, which is not a good combination. So let's correct. And correct it, at least for the glide slope part. Check. Continue landing. flare. Reversers. $80 knots ground speed, reverses idle. Auto brakes off. Manual braking. Runway turn off light, taxi lights on. And let's vacate the runway here. So we have to proceed on this taxiway until we have that one down there. Could have taken the next exit. Let's clean up the airplane. Flaps retracted. Spoilers retracted. Auto brakes are off. Landing lights off. And let's leave the strobes on until we have passed 2-5 right. And increase a little bit of power because we are slowing down. Flight directors can be switched off. And let's zoom in again to get that taxiway on the nav display. There's no after landing checklist apparently. Let's turn right. And then we have to be on the other side of that terminal down there.
Approaching 07 left.
I think XLive stopped working because I don't see any other airplane on the airport. So XLive looks like I said, it usually stops working. That's why I didn't use the ATC function for this video. But we are here in Los Angeles. Turning left here. So let's see, do we need an APU? Let's just start it. And we can switch off the strobe light now. Let's turn right. And let's take the second gate on our right hand side. Let's park over there. So runway turn-off lights can be switched off, as well as the taxi lights. We don't want to blind ground crew. And let's turn in to gate 154 at LAX to conclude this flight from Frankfurt to Los Angeles with the SSG 7478i. Must say I've had quite a lot of fun with this add-on. Of course, well, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, it's not PMDG quality, but as I demonstrated with the documentation that is included, the design philosophy, it isn't meant to be a PMDG quality airplane. It's meant to be a fun add-on, and I think the developers have succeeded in that quite well. I've had a lot of fun with it. I think it flies wonderfully. I'll just park it here and then we'll take a look at that landing from the outside. And I guess that will conclude the video then. So slightly further. And there we are. Parking brake set. So to conclude this video, I think, no, let's just take a quick look at that landing first. A little bit late, a little bit, but on the center line. So actually I'm quite happy. I've had worse landings with this one in the past. Nice and gently flared. And a gentle nose gear touchdown. Like I said, I've had worse landings in the past with this airplane. Anyway, let's call in some ground equipment. For instance, the GPU. That is now connected, so put that one on there. That is on the buses, so we can now switch off the engines. The beacon lights can be switched off. We can switch off the engine NGIs. The nav lights can remain on, the engine bleeds can be switched off, APU bleed can be switched on. The engine pumps can be switched off. And the electric engine controls can also be switched off. Let's open the cabin doors. Take a look at the doors page. They are now open. So this concludes this video. My final thoughts on the SSG 747-8i. I think it's a nice add-on. Like I said, don't expect an add-on with the system depth of PMDG, because you will be disappointed if you do. But it is a fun add-on. I think in terms of performance, well, it's not as spot on as the PMDG 747, but it's not extremely off. If I take a look at the fuel on board, it's 19.4. Now, according to the flight plan, we need 12, so there's 7 more. I've added 5,000 more before the flight because of the extra weight. So basically there's a 2,000 kilo, 2,500 kilo difference between what the flight plan depicted upon the PMDG format and what the SSG actually did. But well, 2,500 kilos on a flight of 10.5 hours, that's not extreme in my book. So it's okay-ish. If you want to fly a 747 in X-plane, I can highly recommend, well, I can recommend this airplane. If you are more of an in-depth simmer, I think you still have to wait for PMDG to embrace X-Plane, but I think that can take a very long time because I haven't read anything about that. So all in all, I say this would be like a 7 out of 10 airplane. Really nice, not the best, but definitely a lot of fun to fly, and that was the objective of the developer, so I think they succeeded in that. Just my thoughts. Hope you liked the video. If you have any tips, tricks, comments, questions whatsoever, please leave them in the comment section below. As usual, please do so in a respectful manner. And I hope to see you all again on another day, on another flight. From a cloudy Los Angeles, I wish you all a lovely day and see you on the next video. Bye bye.